Hi. Hey, everybody. How are ya? No afternoon lull? Yeah, a little bit. It's great to be with you from the the West Coast. Sorry about that. What was that line earlier about truth and like facing truth in the mirror? Don't lie to yourself. You have to admit it's true. Come on. No, really, what a joy to be with you. It's a bit early still my time, and I'm not a morning person, and it's like afternoon lull for you, so we'll see what happens in the next few minutes. Hey, a lot has already been said today, and so much of it beautiful, and I'm about to add more to the pile. So to begin, how about we just have a moment of quiet, just to come back to the present moment, and more importantly, to come back to God. If you want, just begin to notice your breath. Recognize it as God's gift of life to you. Just breathe in all that is good from this day. Breathe out your gratitude. Father and Son and Holy Spirit, we recognize your ruach, your breath in us and above us and below us and all around us. We just ask that in the afternoon and in the middle of all the noise, all of it very good, that you would penetrate into our mind and pass that to our heart, our thinking and our feeling and even our wanting. We open our ear as the portal to all that we are, to you, and invite you to come. That's true. Amen. Okay, to start off, how about we all read together Jesus' invitation from Matthew chapter 11. Read this out loud with me. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. I love Eugene Peterson's paraphrase of Matthew 11. It was already read a few hours ago, but I think it's worth repeating. Are you tired, worn out, burned out on religion? Come to me. Get away with me, and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me. Work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. How good is that line? I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me, and you'll learn to live freely and lightly. Is anybody in the room tired? And I don't mean like it's 1:30 in the afternoon and I was up late last night with my youth pastor Horde in a hotel tired. I mean at a soul level where the solution is not 8 or 9 hours of sleep on a Friday night. Is anybody worn out? Is anybody even burned out on religion? You know, for years I read this invitation of Jesus and I thought, I think that I apprentice under Jesus, but honestly, I am tired, and I am worn out, and to shoot straight, I'm a little burned out on religion. I grew up in the church. I'm the son of a pastor, which should be a cuss word, but it's not. And no, my dad's amazing, but he's not here, so I can say that. I church planted when I was in my 20s. I've been to more church services than John Wesley, and at some point, it is what it is. And for years, I read this and I thought, man, I must be missing something. Hidden in plain sight in Matthew 11 is what the philosopher Dallas Willard called the secret of the easy yoke. He writes this, in this truth lies the secret of the easy yoke. The secret involves living as Jesus lived in the entirety of his life, adopting his overall lifestyle. Our mistake is to think that following Jesus consists in loving our enemies, going the second mile, turning the other cheek, Sermon on the Mount stuff, while living the rest of our lives just as everyone else around us does, and it is a strategy bound to fail. What he's saying is if your strategy in life is to live out the teachings of Jesus, to live out his vision of human flourishing in the Sermon on the Mount, particularly the moral aspect, to love your enemy and not worry and all of that stuff, but you don't change your daily life, morning routine, budget, schedule, weekend agenda, to match that of Jesus himself, then you don't have a chance at success. But if you take on Jesus' overall lifestyle, then his teachings will become easy, meaning will become the natural byproduct of your daily life in company with him. Here's my paraphrase of Willard. If you want to experience the life of Jesus, you have to adopt the lifestyle of Jesus. So the turn of phrase for this year's event is fully alive, which is ripping from Jesus' line in John 10, as we read this morning, life to the full, and I love it. But we forget that life is not just something we receive, it is something that we have to accept into our own body through our lifestyle. What's that pithy business line? Your system is perfectly designed to give you the results you are getting. Usually that's applied by a consultant to a widget or a budget or something. But I think there's all sorts of implications for your soul and its health or lack thereof. If the results that you are getting are, I'm tired, I'm worn out, I'm burned out, I live with chronic anxiety, I don't sleep well at night, I'm on edge with my family, I'm not present with the people that I lead, then the odds are that something about the system of your day-to-day life is off kilter. Jesus' offer is to teach you and me a whole new way to shoulder the weight of the human condition that is easy. Now, because most of us are not farmers, if you are, we're very happy that you're here. But I'm not. Most of us miss the gravity of this agrarian metaphor of an easy yoke. Dr. Dale Bruner, in his commentary on Matthew, writes this: a yoke is a work instrument. Thus, when Jesus offers a yoke, he offers what we might think tired workers need least. They need a mattress or a vacation, not a yoke. See, scholars can be a little bit funny. But Jesus, I'm the only one laughing, so maybe not. But Jesus realizes that the most restful gift he can give the tired, listen, is a new way to carry life, a fresh way to bear responsibilities. Realism sees that life is a succession of burdens. We cannot get away from them. Thus, instead of offering escape, Jesus offers equipment. Jesus means that obedience to his Sermon on the Mount, his yoke, will develop us in a balance and a way of carrying life that will give more rest than the way we have been living. That word way is in quotes because it is straight from the mouth of Jesus himself. And the way of Jesus is exactly what it sounds like. It is a way of life. It is not just a set of ideas that we call theology. It's not just a list of do's and don'ts that we call ethics. It's not just a set of principles to live by that we call Christian living or whatever. It is all of that. It's more, not less. It is a lifestyle that is based on the life and teaching of Jesus himself. Since at least the Reformation, not to step on any toes here, but our emphasis, at least in the West, has been on the death and the resurrection of Jesus, and for the most part, depending on your church tradition, on the writings of Paul. At least that was my experience, which is all fine, even healthy. But what's not healthy is that all too often little to no attention is paid to the life and the teachings of Jesus and the writings of the four Gospels. This is a long-running problem. N.T. Wright, in his book, How God Became King, has this gentle critique of the creeds. And he just points out that the creeds, for the most part, jump right from Jesus' birth to his death. I think of the Apostles' Creed, which dates to the 2nd century A.D. He was born of a virgin. Next line, he suffered under Pontius Pilate. There's a little bit in between there. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John don't skip from Jesus' birth to his death. In fact, most of the Gospels, most of the real estate in the story is stories about the in-between. And not just stories about Jesus' miracles, walking on water or the feeding this many people, not just that, but stories about the details of Jesus' daily life. Very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus went off to a solitary place to pray. One Sabbath, Jesus and his apprentices were walking through a field of grain. A storm came up, and Jesus was asleep in the front of the boat. And these stories about the details of Jesus' life are mixed with his teaching. After all, he was a rabbi. And most of his teaching, if you pay attention to it, as you do, is about how to live, not how to die. And stories and teaching are exactly what you would expect if the genre of literature that the Gospels fall into is, as Dr. Richard Bauckham and other scholars have made a compelling case for, that of an ancient biography. The four Gospels are not systematic theology textbooks, are not Christian living books with a set of principles to live by. Nothing wrong with any of that. But they are biographies. The story of Jesus comes to us through the genre of biography. Think about a biography. Any biography readers in the house? You know who you are. It takes a special kind of person to devote 800 pages to somebody who's dead, right? And I'm not a biography addict, but I dabble. Every year on vacation, I read a few. I just read Metaxas's new one on Luther. It was just fantastic. Wherever you're at, though, on the biography spectrum, this is a safe place. And most of us, whether it's once a lifetime or once a month, most of us read the biographies of people that we look up to and respect in order to copy the details of their life in order that we might achieve a similar outcome. So if you're an entrepreneur in tech or whatever, you read Steve Jobs by Isaacson, and then you read Musk, or at least you did until a few weeks ago, and you, or whoever, and you compare and contrast, and you figure out what details of their life work for you that are based on kind of your personality, your stage of life, your startup, your business, or if you're a pastor, you read this famous pastor or that famous pastor, you read Luther or whatever it is, in the hope that maybe, just maybe, if I live in a somewhat similar way to them, I might achieve a somewhat similar result. Right? This is Biography 101. The tragedy is very few followers of Jesus read the Gospels that way. At least not anymore in the late modern West. That's how most Christians used to, though. The entire tradition of the spiritual disciplines, which goes all the way back to monasticism, if not before, is all an attempt to work the details of Jesus' daily life into our own in the hope of getting the same result that he had: life with the Father, life in his vision of the kingdom of God, life about the Father's business. We forget that over and over again in the Gospels, Jesus, his open invite was, "Come and follow me." Or my church back home, we translate that, "Come and apprentice under me." I would argue another way to paraphrase that line is, "Come, copy the details of my life. Take on my lifestyle as your own." Because the way of Jesus is the way to the life that we all crave, to this fully alive vision. How do we get there? Right? Not just through something that you believe in your mind or a list of moral do's and don'ts. You get there through the way. I think of Jesus' well-known line, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." I grew up in a church tradition where we read that as a statement about the exclusivity of Christ. Just set that whole theological debate aside for a moment. We all have strong opinions about that. Most likely, that's not what the statement is about. It is a statement far more likely that is about the way to life in the present, not in the future, on earth and not just in heaven. Again, my boy Eugene, quote, Q, okay, I have it here. "The Jesus way, there he is, wedded to the Jesus truth, brings about the Jesus life." But Jesus as the truth gets far more attention than Jesus as the way. Jesus as the way is the most frequently evaded metaphor among the Christians with whom I have worked for 50 years as a North American pastor. To follow Jesus, or to apprentice under Jesus, or to copy the details of Jesus' life is by definition to follow after his way, his vision of a whole new way to be human and to shoulder the weight of our life. And this is to a T what it means to lead others in your church or business or wherever you lead to follow Jesus and do the same. Think of Paul's line on repeat through his letters. How about to the Corinthians? "Follow my example as I follow the example of Christ." Or to the Philippians, "Join together in" what? "Following my example, brothers and sisters. And just as you have us as a model, as a template of how to live, keep your eyes on other people who live the way that we do." To the Thessalonians, "You yourselves know how you ought to" what? "Follow our example. We were not idle when we were with you. We did this in order to offer ourselves, our whole lives, as a model for you to imitate." You know, I used to read these lines and think, well, I mean, he can say that. He's Paul. He's the author of half the New Testament, like extra Holy Spirit on him or something like that. That was lousy theology. I'm aware of that, all right? You have your moments too. And Paul was a master apprentice of Jesus for sure, but now, upwards of 2 decades into the pastor thing, I have come to realize that if I can't say that, if I can't say to some extent, follow Jesus the way I follow Jesus, organize your day-to-day life somewhat similar to the way that I organize my day-to-day life in an attempt to follow Jesus' model, if I can't say that, then I have no business in leadership at a church. In fact, I have come to believe this is actually the most important thing that I have to offer the people I lead. I love that line from Ruth Haley Barton. The best thing you bring to leadership is your own transforming self. Meaning your own soul in the process of becoming more like Jesus. Doesn't mean you have to, the goal here is not perfection. The goal is progress. The goal is somebody who's not there, but who's down the path and says, here's what the map is somewhat like to follow. Your life is your message, not just your sermon or your podcast or your meeting agenda or your small group or whatever it is that you lead. Your life, all of it, not just the stuff you have to say about God from the Bible, your budget, your schedule, your parenting, your lifestyle, your weekend routine, your rhythm of work and rest, your social media habits, all of it is your message. Is your life, is mine, a quiet rebellion against the hurry and the low-grade exhaustion and full-on ambition and celebrity chasing after the wind and the materialism of what Jesus and the writers of the New Testament call the world? Or is it just a Christianized version of the same? Leaders, this matters because our churches, and I hate this truth, but that doesn't make it less true, will live up or down to our level of maturity. As the maxim goes, a church rarely rises above the maturity of its leaders. Again, I hate that, but that doesn't make it less true. And remember that maturity is measured by your whole person, not just your prayer life, not just how many times a year you read through the Bible. I only do it once a month, but I'm still, some of you, that's not how we measure, all right? Oh, at our church, we're very involved in emotionally healthy spirituality, and I'll talk about that in a minute, and we just are going through it as a staff, and we just took like his emotional health index test, and on the spiritual maturity, I scored, I'd like to tell you, 19 out of 20. That's very true. Of course, naturally, I'm a pastor. On the emotional maturity, I was 10 out of 20. It was not even a passing grade, right? Not a really good sign. But Pete Scazzaro and others have done great work recently on the reciprocal relationship between spiritual maturity and emotional maturity. Are they even two different things? Pete has this great line about how we find God's will for our lives in our limitations. Who says that, by the way? Nobody says that. But we all have limitations, and not just time and space and 24 hours in a day, for sure that. Most of us have emotional limitations. I used to lead a megachurch. I don't anymore. That's not because I'm, whoever. It's because I couldn't hack it. I had the brain for it. I had somewhat of a talent for it, but I could not do that and be an emotionally healthy, loving, present human being, much less father and husband. That was past my capacity, over my limitations. Relational limitations. I have 3 children. Limitation 1, limitation 2, limitation 3. That's it. And I love you, right? Oh, a lot is said. Most of us, in particular in the American culture, just spend all of our energy trying to overcome our limitations. What if it's not even a battle to fight? What if it's a signpost from God? So much is said about living up to our full potential right now. And that's great. I agree with all of it. But that's one side of a two-sided conversation. The other half of that truth is about accepting our limitations. Because both our potential and our limitations, imago Dei, if you know Genesis, and from the dust, both of them are signposts of God's call on our life. If you're tired, if you're burnt out, if chronic anxiety is your new normal, if you have to always be doing something, then the odds are it is a sign from God in your own body that you have gone past your limitations and therefore past the grace of God and the capacity of your life. In another one of Jesus' invitations, he says, take up your cross and follow me. For years, this is embarrassing, but I interpreted that to mean sacrifice your emotional health on the altar of church planting, which I don't think is what Jesus was saying, which in turn meant sacrifice the emotional and relational health of your family and your children. If anything, I think what Jesus is saying is closer to sacrifice your ambition, your drive, your workaholism, your perfectionism, your desire to be everything, do everything, always be there for everybody, always be liked, always be well spoken of, your desire for fame, or what do we call it now, influence, money, status, a pat on the back, that wasn't passive aggressive, sorry, some people, context, I promise. Worst case scenario, I'm a long flight away, all right? Let all of that die, or your soul will die instead, and those of those around you. For most of us, this means that we need to slow our life way down to fit it into our potential and our limitations, to fit it into the way of Jesus, which if you have read the 4 Gospels, he was rarely in a hurry. You ever read Jesus like, oh, sorry, I can't pray for you right now. TEDx in Jerusalem, gotta go. This is Thaddeus. Nobody's ever heard of him. He'll pray for you. Bye. Right? You don't read that story. It's not there. I don't have time. I could tell you story after story after story where Jesus is a template for slowing. I've had the chance to share a meal a few times with John Ortberg in California. And I've not asked him to mentor me because he's way out of my league. So this is my secret plan. Just ask him to lunch every 2 or 3 months and come, and I have like a journal, and I have questions, and I'm all ready to go. And then I just say, it was so great, thank you. And then about 3 weeks later, when it's not fresh in his mind, I'm like, hey, could we do it again in 6 weeks? And the answer keeps, one day he's gonna wake up about 6 months from now and realize, crap, I am mentoring this dude. How did that happen? But one of the things that we have had conversation about a few times is what he calls the spiritual discipline of slowing. And John tells the story from the late 90s when he was on staff, interesting, at Willow Creek. And when he was just getting sucked into the speed of megachurch life, which is all over the world. It's not just a megachurch thing, it's just an American thing. It's a late modern thing. It's a I have a phone in my pocket thing. And he calls up his mentor, Dallas Willard, out in California. Says, all right, what am I missing? And John says there was a long silence on the other end of the line because, quote, with Willard, there was always a long silence. And then Willard said this, you must ruthlessly eliminate hurry from your life. Hurry is the great enemy of spiritual life in our day. John writes that down. This is before Twitter, it would have broke the internet. And he's like, that's amazing. What else? Another long silence. Willard, there is nothing else. You must ruthlessly eliminate hurry from your life. As was said, I live in Portland, Oregon, which is the vanguard of the kind of emerging post-Christian America, where it's one of the most secular and progressive cities in our nation. We're a few weeks away from our annual naked bike ride. It's a thing. I'm the only pastor I know who's ever had to put a community leader under church discipline for participating in a naked bike ride to witness. This person literally used Christian cliches on me about light in a dark place, and I thought, no, put your clothes back on. No. It's not how we roll. Clothe yourself with Jesus Christ, or at least just with Gap, something, you know? And if you were to ask me, prior to my conversations with John, you know, or the Willard story, like what's the greatest threat to your spiritual life and that of your church in a city like a Portland? I don't know what I would have said. Progressive theology, or this podcast, or the redefinition of sexuality, marriage, or Trumpism, or political or racial tension. I don't know what I would have said. Honestly, hurry would not have even been on the list. But the more I process that, the more I begin to live into it in my own body, the more I come to realize that is spot on. That's number one. People are just too busy to live anything close to the vision of emotional health and spiritual life that Jesus has for them. Again, Eugene, what did he say? The adjective busy should be to the noun pastor what dishonest is to accountant. Something like that. Hopefully you just feel horrible about yourself right now. I'm just here to heap shame upon you, right? No, not at all. But there's truth in that. Hurry is incompatible with the life that Jesus has on offer. It's incompatible with the triumvirate that we read about through Jesus' teachings and the writings of Paul of love and joy and peace. Love, hurry is incompatible with love. People in a hurry do not have time for love. All of my worst moments as a dad, as a pastor, as a human being are always when I'm late, when I'm in a rush, when I don't have time, when I'm out the door, all of my worst moments. Hurry is incompatible with joy. What the master apprentices of Jesus have said for 2 millennia now, not to mention all the secular mindfulness, happiness experts and positive psychology and Buddhist mindfulness, not to mention all of that, everybody's on the same exact page. If there is a secret to happiness, it's presence to the moment. To slow down and fully inhabit the now, enjoy and delight and a pervasive sense of well-being in your life with God and his world. And hurry, we all know, is incompatible with peace. When is the last time you were late, stressed, in a rush, and just felt the deep shalom of God in your soul? There's so much anger and anxiety in our nation right now. And it's pretty much all well-deserved. But what is needed is not more anger and more anxiety. What got us into this mess is not what will get us out. What is needed is what Friedman called a non-anxious presence, i.e. somebody who is like Jesus of Nazareth. All that to say, it's easy to wrap up. As I wrap up, it's easy to come to a conference like this, get all charged up, incredible leaders, ideas, thoughts, wicked cool band. It's easy, you come here, you get all worked up, and you go back to take over the world. And then 2 weeks later, you wake up again tired. To end, I am not calling you to do more, I'm calling you to do less. Like if you want to practice before we're done, just take out your calendar now or tonight in your hotel room or on your break. Just look at your daily schedule, weekly schedule, and then just murder 13 things. Just like take a hatchet, like men's Bible study, die, whatever. Netflix subscription, over, right? Social media account, delete, Saturday morning, whatever. No, like, just kill it. Slow down your life to the speed of love and joy and peace, to the speed of Jesus. Take up his easy yoke, apprentice under him into life that is fully life. Thank you.